we can, yeah,
Awesome.
let's get started with the workshop. I'll just fade in the background there.
Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm currently in my 4th out of 5th year at the University of Waterloo. So basically studying in terms of like study terms, I'm in 3rd year, but this is my 4th year of university technically. I've done a lot of internships, which I'll get to in a bit, but I guess I'll start from the beginning, like grade 11, 12-ish. So in grade 11, I was in Toronto, Victoria Park CI, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very interested in business and very much also just wanted to do, like marketing and other kind of things. I was a DECA co-pres. I was doing junior achievement, like starting our own businesses. So very business heavy. Then I realized that I actually do enjoy engineering and I enjoy physics and I absolutely love math. Do I love math anymore after doing university math? Maybe not, but like in high school, enjoyed a lot of those concepts and kind of things. So kind of got pushed into engineering, really enjoyed kind of doing those aspects in school. So being part of like Western Science Olympics and doing Guelph Science Olympics, building things, more from like an engineering standpoint, and then yeah, just building stuff. Even in physics, like we'd have a lot of labs where we'd have to build things, and that's where I realized I do enjoy engineering. And because of all these things, I kind of leaned towards hardware. I took like a comp bench course in grade 11, and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. So kind of got just was really enjoying that. I had taken computer science, so I was like, oh, I don't want to, sit and code all day. That's kind of what I ended up doing anyways. But that's kind of my initial thoughts of what I wanted to do. So more hardware centric, but also understanding mechanical was sounded pretty cool. So I chose mechatronics engineering at the University of Waterloo. Did my AF. Got in early, so I had my offer in Feb. This is 4 years ago now. Oh yeah, and after I got my offer in Feb, I kind of just chilled for my second term of school, and then I did an internship right after high school at SAP Labs, doing like IoT hardware kind of stuff. So just building a smart office sensor prototype for them, which was pretty interesting. And then I joined university, and which was a good time. And we got to learn a lot of things about how university is and kind of how it works. It was interesting. You get a lot of kind of hands, especially in Toronto. You get a lot of hands-on labs, especially when you're in person. My last couple of years have been online, so not as much hands-on things as you can imagine. But other than that, it's been pretty interesting. And after that, I did my internship again because I'm in stream 4, which basically means you alternate every single term, starting your first term. So I did. I worked at this company called Ritual. If you've been to downtown Toronto, you might have seen it around. At Ritual, I was doing QA, so like quality assurance. It was all manual for a good bit of it, and then I was automating some other aspects as well as writing some scripts to make like dashboards and stuff, which was pretty interesting. So that was a cool like starting place for my internships, and then during that internship, I pushed myself a lot to like do other things. Along the way, I like interviewed for some pretty big companies without getting the offers. In like my 1A term, I interviewed for Tesla, made it to the last round, did not get it. Um, during my first co-op, I interviewed for Google, did not get it. Um, then I went back to 1B, interviewed at a lot of different places. I think I had like 11 interviews that term. One of them being Apple, again for hardware, did not get it. So a lot of kind of stopping points in a lot of different places where I just did not get what I wanted, and it did make me kind of work a little bit harder to get to those places. So over my first co-op, I was like picking up machine learning backend software because it sounded cool and felt cool. It was very interesting to me. Aside from doing hardware outside of school, and then I I did that. I really enjoyed kind of picking these things up, especially machine learning. And then I got a job as a machine learning engineering intern at Deloitte, where I was kind of building these search engines for the tax people there. So that was interesting. It was a cool internship. After Deloitte, I was at Tussa after my 2A term. So 2A term was pretty fun. But that's when COVID happened. So the last bit of it, the tail end of 2A was online. But we did get to build like some things in person, do a lot of laser cutting. It was pretty cool. After that, I worked at Tesla, working on distributed systems for energy. So it's like backend, but how do you scale it to a lot so that it can handle like a lot of requests per second, so that it doesn't go down. So if like Facebook went down a while back, so how do we prevent problems like that happening? But at Tesla, so that's kind of what I was working on to an extent, and really enjoyed it there. It was a good time. And then I went to 3A. It was all don't know. Then I went to 2B. 2B in Tron is probably one of the hardest terms you get. It was very that's when you become a true Tron, as I like to say, and a lot of other people like to say. You're a Tron, but that's when you become a true Tron is your 2B term, because then you go through hell. Um, and after that term, I worked at Apple, doing software engineering intern, just a little bit of machine learning, more so like if you saw like WWDC or have been keeping up with the news, a lot of Siri has moved to on device, so that was like part of my efforts for on-device work, and hopefully my stuff will go out for next WWDC, but we'll see, I guess. And that was a good time. After that, I decided I wanted to return to Apple, so that's where I am right now, doing product management. So it's a little bit different. I deal with more high level. How do we improve Siri from like this point of view, and like this point of view, and like thinking about different things. How do we expand to like different locales and new locales, launching Siri in different places. So very interesting, kind of very different kind of a change. You work a lot more organizing people, and getting everyone on like the same page rather than doing the building aspect. So it's been interesting. Gotten to learn a lot of crazy things, and hoping to apply that to more of engineering aspect later on, and having a good time. So that's like a decent TLDR about me, I guess, so far. Aside from that, like I've worked part time at a couple startups doing product management as well as TPM, like technical program management ish kind of stuff. Um, I've done design teams at the University of Waterloo, a couple of them. Most prominently, this EcoCar team, which basically is you take a regular car and you make it into a hybrid electric car, which is a pretty interesting experience if you think about it. And a lot of the people on that team end up working at Tesla because Tesla does EV. Let me think. Is there anything I'm missing? I guess I can talk about like school experience and other stuff more, but I do see you have a couple questions. I want to answer those first. So the first question is, how do you get an internship in high school? Good question. So I was doing this program called Junior Achievement, and that program essentially, you start your own company under another company. So the another company in my case was SAP, and I knew I was going to be doing engineering, so I went back to SAP for my last year in grade 12, and I networked my way through. They did not used to hire interns, especially from high school. And then after me, they kind of ended up starting this intern program. So especially if you're a high school student and you really want to do an internship, in terms of like priority order, I'd say first getting into like, your top choice university is probably the biggest thing. So keeping your grades up, being involved in a lot of different things is very important. Because hunting for an internship does take some time. But once you have that, going on LinkedIn, asking, hey, like I'm in high school, I'd love to intern. I will give you a heads up. It's probably not going to be paid, especially in high school, because you don't know as much yet. So even just asking, hey, like, can I just pick up tasks off of your backlog and like help as much as I can, or contribute to this product in any way, stuff like that. You could go to startups and ask them over LinkedIn or cold emailing. So there's a lot of things that we can do there. I think I talk a little bit about this on my one of the presentations I gave a while back. Let me find it for you. So I'm just dropping it in the chat. You can take a look at that later. It's basically just a presentation on how do you network to get internships. It applies to everybody. I highlight a lot of things that might be an interesting watch. I would say keep it relatively low priority for now, just because university and getting into university should be at the top of your mind. So yeah. Other than that, next question: how much carryover did you find between the mechatronics curriculum and working as a PM, hardware, ML engineer? Very good question. Yeah, so the thing about university in general is you're probably not going to be learning a lot of concepts which you're applying on a daily basis. There are some things which you'll kind of come up on periodically. So for example, in mechatronics, we take this course called RTOS, which is real-time operating systems. So it's about when you have multiple things communicating with each other concurrently, so at the same time. How do you deal with that? So those were some of the problems I tackled at Tesla even before I took on the course. And so I was like learning the things which I learned at Tesla after I had already worked there and already learned them on my own, which is pretty interesting. But there is a little bit of carry forward there. In terms of PM is really just you kind of learn on your own. I feel like the engineering philosophy and like, how do you scope things out? How do you figure out whether it's the right thing to build? Those are all important things as a PM, and you kind of pick them up throughout your engineering degree. And you're going to get these really crappy assignments early on, which force you to think that way. But it's just like a necessary force. You're never going to be writing pages which like reports which are 30 pages long. You might just have like one working doc, and you might just be writing like a PRD, which is a product requirement document, which usually is like 1 or 2 pages max, kind of just specking out all the information for a product. So you do a lot more work in university than you need to, but it prepares you relatively well for PM in the real world to an extent. There's a lot of like things about building intuition and other stuff like that, but you just don't have it explained as much. In terms of machine learning, the math courses you take are very relevant because a lot of ML is math heavy, and you need to know the math to an extent to be able to do those kind of problems. So all the math you learn in university is very key. And a lot of these software stuff that you learn in Tron is very low level focus. So microprocessors kind of things, so running anything on a microprocessor rather than like a computer. I'm trying to get that changed a little bit so that people coming in get a little bit more experience into cloud software and like networking and stuff. So we'll see. I'm talking to a lot of people for that, but it's a hard thing to get done. So yeah, that's kind of a good answer. Hopefully, I answered. Kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think I tackled most of the things I wanted to talk about. So yeah, literally just like drop me any questions you might have about university. I know in university, AIF, co-op, school, which school to go to. A little bit of bias there, but to be honest, like I've seen a lot. So no, I think I might be able to give you a relatively good picture on kind of what good schools I've seen. Let's say if your goal is to work at big internships, like which schools perform well from Canada, might be an important question. So yeah, ask me literally anything. You have me for the next, I don't know, while. What was the transition like between high school and university? How can you prepare for landing your first internship, grades, experience, practice, and interview? Yeah, no, that's a good question. So thank you for that, Albert. What was the transition like between high school and university? So I'm going to answer that one first. I think I had prepared myself mentally that so my grade 12 entrance average for when I got my acceptance was a 96.3, if I remember correctly. And I knew that I was gonna go to shit once I joined university. Like I was mentally prepared. When I was coming for co-op, and that to Waterloo, which is a relatively hard program, I was like, okay, I'm gonna join here. My average is gonna go to crap, and that's okay. But I'm gonna focus on getting good co-ops, and that's gonna be what I optimize for. So that's what I did, and I got like I pretty much had a 75 average all throughout in-person school, and then online school changed a little bit, and I started doing a little bit better because online and it's easier. But in person, yeah, I was getting 75s, and I had all my big name internships before I had any kind of like high grades. So grades don't really matter for internships, to be honest. But that was the biggest change. Another big change that you kind of go through is that once you enter university, you're an adult, regardless of your age. I was 17 when I went to university, just because I have a late birthday. And let me tell you, like, there's you can pretty much do whatever you want, right? And with that comes a lot of responsibility. So if you don't go to class, that's your responsibility. If you don't do your assignments, that's your responsibility. No one's sitting on your head. No one's telling you to do shit. Like your friends might, motivate you to do certain things, but they're not going to be there to baby you at all. Like you have to do it yourself. So you really learn how to be an adult once you go to university, and at least to an extent. I'm gonna guess you're not managing finances yet, but you do it eventually. So that's what I'd say. In terms of you basically enter adulthood once you go to university, and yeah, expect your grades to drop a lot, especially if you're doing like engineering. And also, you don't want to be optimizing for grades, in my opinion, unless you're planning to do a master's. Grades don't really matter for internships most of the time, unless you want to do machine learning. When you want to do machine learning, it's a little bit on the fence because then they might look at your math and computer science grades and making sure that you know your stuff properly. Um, yeah, that's that one. How can you prepare for landing your first internship? So one, I'd say if you're, regardless of whether you're in Mac software or electrical, because that's really my take from Prague, having anything built is going to give you such a big advantage going into university. So let's say you get your acceptance, right? After you get your acceptance, you have like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months at least before you head to university. And 2 of those months are like absolutely free. Like those 2 months is your summer break. And if you're going to Waterloo, you're not getting summer breaks anymore. So my advice there will be, please enjoy your summer break. It's the last one you're going to have for a while, and you're going to be either studying or on work otherwise. So please enjoy that. But other than that, if you do want to build stuff in that time too, which I do recommend to an extent, enjoy, but also build stuff. Especially for an engineering, like literally the point of you doing engineering is building things. And so I would say when you're in, high school and you've gotten accepted, you don't care about school really that much after that point, maybe for your scholarships and keeping those up for your grades. You're keeping your grades up for those scholarships, and that's about it. But you have a little bit of free time. So, enjoy that time with your friends, but also if you have free time, build things. So that's the best way to showcase, your skills, and show that you've, gone out of your way to really learn new things. And so let's say you're in mechanical, CAD stuff. If you can and have access to a 3D printer, print it, use it, make changes to it, and show it off in your thing. If you're interested in Mac or electrical, even doing robotics at your school can give you a relatively big edge once you go to first year, because a lot of people will have done it, but a lot of people will also have not. So you'll have an edge over the people who haven't. And really just building things. If you're interested in software, there's so many things you can do at any given second. Literally just open a tutorial. Literally just even if you're copy pasting code down, you're going to come out smarter than you were before you started doing that, right? Like you'll learn about things. It might take you 10 watches to get it down, but at least you'll be learning things and you'll have something to put on your resume. In terms of practice interviewing, 100% you're going to need to do that once you get interviews, but you don't really focus on that until you do get your interviews. Do you move for internships? I do, usually, when it's not COVID. So technically, we're still in COVID. Apple's not back in person yet. So yeah, that's basically why I don't move for internships right now. But for my first internship, it was in downtown Toronto. So I was living in Toronto at the time with my family. So I just moved home, and that was that. And I just commuted to downtown every single day, which was fun. And working in downtown is a different vibe, as you can imagine. Then I worked at Deloitte in Kitchener, so I lived in Waterloo that term, which was a great time as well. And I just commuted to Kitchener to get to work, which was a good time because the office was really, really pretty and a lot of free coffee. Then I was supposed to go to Tesla, which was in California. I had my visa applied for. Everything was kind of basically done. I was literally looking for places to live in California, and then COVID kind of became this big thing. And at that point, all I cared about was still having my internship and not needing to look for another, because Tesla was kind of my dream job. So yeah, this would have been my third term in California had it not been for COVID. So I'm kind of crying inside all the time. But hopefully next term, I'll get to go in person and actually experience California, because there's a lot of things which come with it, right? Like your online experience might be very different from your in-person experience, and you might have a preference. Unfortunately, didn't get to experience that too much, but it is what it is, and I'll make a decision for full-time pretty soon after my next internship. So yeah. Albert asks again. Thank you for the questions, Albert. I really appreciate it. How did you spend your free time? Joining clubs, working on side projects, not working? Great question. So at Waterloo, we have a lot of like these kind of employer events where they come in and you get free food. They talk about their company and they take resumes. Like I it's a win-win-win. Like you get to go get free food. And as a broke university student, especially in first year, like that's very key. And so I did a lot of that and went to a lot of those events. Went to networking events for sure, and did a lot of networking, even just like over LinkedIn, a little bit of cold emailing, just to kind of get some warmth to a lot of other people. Side projects during school, less so. It's honestly very hectic, and you don't really get time to do a lot of it. So it's just kind of what it is, and it's okay. And most of all, I would say, just enjoy university. Like I went to a lot of parties and I had a good time, and it's part of your experience too. So you got to make sure you're doing that. Next question is, do you have any tips for finding housing accommodation if you get a co-op far from where you live? Yeah, so it depends where. Oftentimes you could probably just go on Kijiji and find it, find places to live, like as rent for a short period of time. Usually, if you're going to California, Boston, and a couple other places in the States, there's a lot of like Waterloo people already there, so they often like sublet their place out, or they'll just be like, "Oh, I'm leaving. You can take my place," and so it becomes easier for the landlords as well. And for Waterloo, there's like a lot of sublet places. You'll find them eventually. It's kind of crappy, but you just kind of deal with it. There's a lot of student housing companies which deal with a lot of places, and you can find a lot of them just through like Facebook groups and stuff. Do you remember your AIF for admission? Do you have any tips for it? Yes, I do remember my AIF for admission. My sister was actually in grade 12, so all this stuff is very fresh for me right now, because I have to talk about it a lot with my sister. And yeah, so I talked a lot about just like being passionate for engineering, being passionate about Tron specifically, and how it would enable me to, work on clean tech, which is still one of my goals. Sounds very BSy and like just kind of there to show passion for engineering, but and maybe it even was at the time, but after I wrote that AIF, I think I convinced myself to do engineering even more so. And then working on clean tech has been kind of one of my goals since. So Tesla is a big one for me. yeah, in terms of writing any tips for it, get it reviewed by upper ears, because they know kind of what Waterloo likes to do and what likes to hear, which is basically you just tell Waterloo is the best, and they basically will let you in. Just so AIF is important, but biggest thing I'd tell you is your grades. If your grades are like high, it becomes a lot easier. Like I in my first term, also the more completed grade 12 courses you have, the easier becomes for them to give you a decision. So for me, in grade 12, my first term was math, chemistry, and physics, and then a spare. Was just semestered. Yeah, I called it pre-engineering because honestly, it was very hectic for me, and I was pretty much that I'd come home either doing extracurriculars or studying until like 3 a.m. almost every single day. To be honest, it was might have been a little bit of overkill, but it let me chill for like half my year after that, which is pretty nice. So I'd say like that was a pretty big reason why I got in early, is because I had like very core courses completed in my first term. And like I did really well on them. I had like a 98, then a 93 in chem. Yeah, because chem sucks. But other than that, it was fine. And then I took kinesiology over the summer before that, so that was like an extra course being completed. Um, yeah. So in terms of tips, high grades, and then getting your AF reviewed and having multiple iterations is usually a good idea. So next question, what's your favorite and least favorite things? What are you about being an engineering student at University of Waterloo? Good question again. I'd say there are a lot of great things. I think co-op has to be one of them. I don't think I could do school for 8 months straight. I'm not built for that, and I actually have to do 8 months straight in my fourth year. And I'll be picking easy courses, or I'm not going to make it out alive. But other than that, I'm just kind of other than that, like I just really like the idea of switching every 4 months. It gets really hectic sometimes, so it's both great and sucks sometimes because you pretty much once you start getting to like a point where you become confident in your abilities and like when all these recruiting cycles happen, you'll want to be looking for jobs earlier and earlier. So I'm often looking for jobs for my next co-op on the co-op that I'm on currently. So it becomes really hectic sometimes, and you have to do a lot of thinking in terms of how do you want to go about it, even per se. So yeah, kind of sucks sometimes. Waterloo can go two different ways. You can either have great friends and great culture and have just a great support system, which I luckily am able to have most of the time. But at the same time, if you're not as extroverted, it can be lonely at times. And you don't know, especially if you're doing CS, I'd say because CS, you don't really have a cohort. In engineering, the really great thing I like is the cohort system. So you have like the same group of people every single year, which is really, really nice because, you actually get to know them really, really well too. And for that, that means, you get to build proper relationships and have long-term things with people and get to know them well. And when you're doing like a fourth year design project, filing your design project, you actually like have a lot of who to work with and kind of how to work with other people. You become a good engineer by then. So yeah, I'd say co-op and the cohort system probably one of my favorite things. Co-op is a double-edged sword because you might have to grind a little bit extra hard. So I'd say between like your terms when you're switching between co-op and school, that's like the time you enjoy and you go for vacation and stuff. Yeah, that's like a few tips I'd say. In terms of like what school to pick and how to go about it, um, I have a few. I have a few opinions on that. It really depends on your goals. I can talk about it if you all want me to. Yeah. These questions got to keep coming. This is a very precious time for you all. Do you know if Waterloo takes IB into consideration when you're applying? Good question. They do to an extent. So I went to an IB school. I didn't do IB. I did not want to do IB. Why would I? I'm just joking. But I did not want to do IB. And as simple as that. And a lot of my friends were in IB. And all I see is, you get to do extra stuff and you get your grades curved pretty much. And so when Waterloo sees, they just care about your grades. That's it. That's the only thing that really matters to them. The fact that it's IB, less so, because they're looking at your converted grade anyways. So maybe it shows your passion. If you put in your AIF, maybe like, oh, like because I'm super passionate about physics and math and all these kind of different things and STEM, I took IB. Maybe that, and you spin it into that, might be a good idea to do if you wanted to showcase that, but I don't think they really care that much, other than looking at your grades. What motivates you and how do you prevent burnout? Good question. What motivates me? That's a really good question. I think it's very intrinsic to like your goals and kind of what you want to get to. I started, and I think like regardless of how big your goal is, you should have something that you're working towards. You can't just be taking shots in the dark unless you're trying to explore. If you're trying to explore and you're trying to learn new things, having a goal of exploring new things is something that's going to help you get to the new things that you want and get better at whatever you want to do. So you need to set some kind of goal. And what that means is even let's say, oh, I want to learn XYZ. Cool. What are you doing like on a daily basis or a weekly basis that's helping you get to your goal? It's literally analogous to, okay, you want to get more fit, you're going to work out more. As simple as that, right? Like work out more, eat healthier, go for runs, do cardio, all these kind of things. And we apply the same for like engineering. If you want to learn software engineering, for example, cool. What are you doing every single week or every single day that's helping you get to that goal? And what are you doing to improve yourself most of the time, right? So you just want to be working towards something. If that goal changes, that's completely okay. Goals change and things you want to work on change. It's completely normal. The thing is, everything you work towards doesn't go to waste. Even if you're doing like a 180-degree complete change in direction, going the opposite route. Like let's say you're doing engineering and then you're going into art. The effort you put into engineering is not going to go to waste. It'll come back here and there, sometime, one day or another. In terms of preventing burnout, very good question. I think taking breaks, regular breaks, is very important, and planning out kind of working around how you work. So if you like to, for me, oftentimes I'll have like this huge list that I want to get through, but I'll be very sporadic in how I do my work. And sometimes I have the energy to do it, sometimes I don't have the energy to do it, sometimes all I want to do is nap, right? So I've kind of just learned to adapt to myself. So if I feel like napping, that I would not recommend this. Figure out how you like to work. But like for me, if I feel like napping, and be like, okay, I can be half as productive now, or I can nap and then wake up later and then be twice as productive than I'd be now. I just do that, and it sometimes works. It sometimes doesn't. I'm still learning to get really good at it, but then you kind of learn how you like to work, and because of that you make small changes which help you get to that goal, and that kind of helps prevent burnout. Waterloo people, because you're always constantly either looking for a job, on the job, or in school. So there is no break really. So the weeks you get off between like your terms, make good use of them. Do not do a lot of work. Just like sit on your bed, be a sloth. Go have fun, go out, enjoy the sun. Something Waterloo students don't do as much as they should. Yeah, just have fun during that time, and that like prevents a lot of burnout that you face. And you need to give yourself breaks. Really. How did you go about picking your program? Um, so I was interested in hardware the most, and doing like firmware type of things, so writing software for hardware. I sort of thought what it would be like. Didn't think about it too much, to be honest. I just didn't know as much. But I did know like Tron would give me a lot of those like a lot of that exposure in a sense to hardware and doing software on hardware, which it has. And so I just picked that. For here, I think for U of T, I picked computer engineering. Western was general engineering. I think Master was general engineering. What else did I do? I did CS at a couple universities, even though I really wasn't that keen on it. Yeah, so Western General, McMaster General, U of T was Comp Eng, Waterloo was Tron, and that was pretty much it, I think, for engineering. And that's just picked, hardware-ish programs. Tron was cool. I had done Shadow Day for Tron, so I really liked it, and that's what I did. Any differences between the Canadian internship process and American? How would you navigate the American internship process by location and title? Good question. A lot of internships in states are going to be software focused, or maybe product management if you're lucky, I guess. Usually doesn't happen as much, but I'd say when you go through Waterloo Works, everything is the same, regardless of whether it's American or Canadian. Everything almost feels the same because everything is happening through that portal. When you're doing external interviews, things change. You often have multiple rounds, and you have to clear all those rounds in order to get the job. Yes, for an internship, multiple rounds, things have changed, and navigating that process is like you do an interview, you go through LinkedIn, or at least you have to find a job first on LinkedIn, or you looking at company websites and applying directly. Once you apply directly, you might get a coding challenge. You have to clear the coding challenge. Then you get a recruiter's phone screen, and then you might have a couple rounds after. So it's gotten relatively difficult for American internships, and the biggest thing I'd say to prioritize for those, if you're going into software, would be lead code. So learning very strong data structures and algorithms, which you learn in 1B of Tron, by the way. And we used to have this professor who would give us like bonus marks for doing lead code. Bless his soul. He was a gem of a man, and the way he taught everything, and like he's probably the reason I do most of my internships well. I remember when I was interviewing for Tesla, I went to him, showed him the description of the job, and he gave me like 20 different links to study off of. So yeah, it was a good time, and hopefully you will get someone similar to him, maybe one day. But your school prepares you for data structures and algorithms, and then it's on you to take it further and learn harder things and do a lot more practice and get better at it. So we have around 15-ish minutes left. We don't have to go for the 15. You can stop whenever you all like. But yeah, they've been talking about a decent bit of things. If there's a specific internship you want to know more about, respecting the NDA, of course, I can talk more about it. Most of my Tesla stuff is public now, so I can talk about it a little bit more. But Apple stuff, less so I can't really talk about it. But I can talk about like what my day-to-day looks like, if that's interesting. How's the interview process like? For which company? Because it really differs company to company, and even team to team sometimes. For Tesla and Apple, okay. Also, everyone else, while I'm answering this question, please put more up. Make use of the time we have. So for Tesla and Apple, Tesla, I can tell you like what they're looking like now, because I think I've helped, after I've worked at Tesla, I think I've helped around anywhere from 15 to 20 people get offers, and like kind of just guided them through the process. What it looks like now is very much like LeetCode style, for your first round or two. So you might do like a recruiter screening, which is like an optional first round. So sometimes you'll get it, sometimes you won't. Then you have then you might get a coding challenge. You have to do a coding challenge. Then you have 1 to 2 interviews, and on those 1 to 2 interviews, you just have to. It might be leak code based. It might be like about the position. Tesla cares a lot about hiring for a specific team. So the team you're going to be working on will be the team you're interviewing with. So another thing is like you want to gel with the interviewer. You want to have a good experience with them so that you like them and they like you. Because if they don't like you, then it doesn't matter because they're the people who are going to be working with you every single day. So that's something to keep in mind. As for Apple, it was a little bit more different. They hire for specific teams for full-time, but for internships, it's a little bit more general. You will do like 1 recruiter screen possibly, then 1 to 2 interviews. So I didn't do a recruiter screen, but I had 2 interviews. First one was leak code heavy. Second one is often usually leak code heavy, but mine was more so like about machine learning and my past experiences. Yeah. For Tesla, my experience with my team was a little bit more specific. They gave me like a coding project, so I did the coding project, and after that, I basically first round was like getting to know the team, and like the interview got to know me. Interviewer ended up becoming my manager that term, and yeah, it was very different because there was like no recruiter screen. I reached out directly to the manager, spoke to him, and we did like an interview, and then he gave me a coding project. I broke my finger having too much fun, and then I remember writing some of that code like while waiting at the hospital, which was a good time. Yeah, and other than that, it was like an interesting process. It was much more distributed systems focused, so a lot of the questions on my interview were focused on that, and kind of systems programming and just how would you scale the system, where would the bottlenecks be, what would be the slow operations, stuff like that, which are really really key components of distributed systems. So it was kind of interesting. What does your day-to-day look like during your internships? In person varies quite a bit from online. When you're doing an in-person internship, you every time like you go get coffee, you talk to other people, you have like those face-to-face interactions. When I was working at Ritual, which was my first internship, I'd go. First off, it was like a very open concept. So I'd talk to a lot of people in like marketing and business development and product management. So like all these different places, right? And honestly, the marketing people and the sales people were the coolest. Since we've gone online, I haven't really gotten the chance to do that, especially being like a relatively extroverted person, which kind of sucks. So day to day over there is like, you commute, you do your work, you chill, you talk to other people, you get to know other people, you do meetings, and then you go home, you have fun after that, and do whatever you want with the time you have left. On the weekend, you kind of just chill. Yeah, and then now it's more so like I will hop on my computer in the morning, work, take breaks, go for walks. Sometimes in the middle. Um, can't say that on. Yeah, no, we're good. So yeah, go for walks. Take some breaks. Kind of reset on like my own time. There's like a pro and con to working remote, which is you can work too much sometimes versus and not realize it. Versus you get to it's a little bit more flexible because you get to take breaks and you get to work on your own kind of schedule. So I like both. I prefer in person or like a hybrid at least. So I'm very excited to go back into the office, hopefully for next term. Where the majority of your sophomore internships were in? Oh, have you had any bad internship experience? That's first. I don't think I have had a bad one. My one at Ritual was definitely not what I wanted to be doing, which was QA. But it was a really good way and a stepping stone for like which enabled me to put extra work outside, pick up on a lot of cool concepts, and to be honest, like QA helped me learn how to break things, right? Because you're coming up with edge cases and things which like how do I break this piece of code, really? So it made me a better engineer, I'd say. So I don't think I've had bad internship experience, although like I've heard of a lot of people, with shitty managers, or like their manager disappears after 2 months and they don't know what they're doing anymore. So it happens. It's okay. Is this an internship? Worst case scenario, like you're still getting paid, or well, crap, whatever, the company dissolves or something, and you're not getting paid anymore for like 2 months. Hopefully, it's not too big of a deal. You'll still most likely get credits and stuff. Next question: what were the majority of your software internships in Python? First one, I was doing scripting. Yes, so QA and scripting. Second one, which was machine learning. A lot of machine learning things are either Python, if they're more production level, or R. So I was doing Python. Third internship at Tesla was Scala, which is like this thing built off of the JVM, so something similar-ish to Java, but more on like a functional programming basis. Yeah, and then I wrote C++ at Apple for my first internship. Now I'm doing product management, but I also do a lot of data science. And so that's, again, Python and Jupyter Notebooks. So yeah, fun. A lot of Python, I guess. Python's probably like the easiest language to pick up, and it's very versatile. But I'd say, picking up a slightly more low-level language like Java, Go, Kotlin, Swift, Scala, any of those are like good one. So knowing two, I think, is a pretty good way to learn all these things. Do you have any book recs for PM or design? Yes. Let me get you some. So I have a few. This will be one, Thinking in Systems, great for design or PM. You can just learn how to, from like an engineering mindset on how things go together. For interviewing, cracking the PM interview is pretty good. Covers a lot of like the key concepts, especially at big companies that they like to kind of quiz you on and make you do. And then finally, which was recommended to me by my current manager, Thinking Fast and Slow. This has been a really good read. You get to think about, well, like type 1 and type 2 systems and kind of how you make decisions and inherent bias within people and how, not you can exploit it, but how can you build around it and to serve people better. So 3 books: Thinking Fast and Slow, Cracking the PM Interview, and Thinking in Systems. My recommendations. And if you're interested in more engineering things, doing The Art of Science of Engineering. How's it going, Cindy? Oh, never mind. Let's see. Do you think QA is a good first co-option platform? I'm going to answer this one first, just quickly. So I think, yeah, QA is definitely a great place to get started, and you get to learn a lot. And to be honest, you get to have a little bit more of a chill co-op, hopefully. And that's the only time you get a chill co-op, because after that it gets a little bit busier. Yeah, and it's a good time to learn. I don't think it's bad at all, as long as you get to do some level of programming. It's fine. We have around 4 minutes left, so I think I'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Cindy, I know you were coming up on stage, if you want to come back. Or ask, whatever.
Yeah. So it is 8:56. I guess we can take the last few questions, but we do start our Waterloo panel really late.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we'll take 1 more question then and call it a day then. If you could go back, would you take Tron again? Good question. Knowing where I am now, yes. I still think that this degree gives you a really interesting perspective from like a mechanical hardware and software position. And as a Tron, regardless of where you go, even if you're literally working on pure software, you have a very interesting take on how to build things. And you always know more about the full picture than anyone else, just because they haven't been it. So you will specialize into one thing most likely if you do choose Tron. but you still get to have like the overarching picture. Like I can do what I'd like to now, but I choose to do software and PM. So that's kind of where I'm at. If you'd like to connect with me, I'm just going to drop my Twitter. That's my Twitter. If you want my Instagram. So on those two, on LinkedIn is just my name, Parth Sareen. So any of those, you can connect with me on. LinkedIn is where I'm disclosed. So if you want to get a hold of me faster, I would recommend the other two. Awesome. I think we're going to call it here. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you all have a great time applying and great grade 12. Other than that, see you later.